Sarah felt a tightness in her chest, but she ignored it until she fell to the floor. Everything around her faded, and she was instantly transported to another location, a place beyond time and life itself. She stood before Jesus, his presence overwhelming and his words unlike anything she'd ever heard. What he revealed about the cross exposed a truth that had been hidden in plain sight. She's back now with a message that has the potential to change everything. If the world is willing to listen. It was simply a part of me, like a piece of jewelry that I never questioned. I saw crosses everywhere. In churches, homes, and even on bumper stickers. It was a familiar symbol, and while it was comforting in some ways, I never really considered its meaning. The day began like any other. I got up early, stretched, and dragged myself into the kitchen for my morning coffee. The house was quiet, and I enjoyed the first few moments of the day as I watched the sun rise through my window. I had a long list of tasks to complete, including work emails, grocery shopping, and possibly fitting in a workout if I had time. Life felt like an endless list of tasks, and I was just trying to keep up. I'd always considered myself a good person. I attended church when I could, prayed when I needed to, and tried to be kind. However, looking back, I realized that my faith was more of a routine than a deep belief. I believed in Jesus, but I didn't truly know him. I'd never taken the time to really understand what my faith meant. As I sipped my coffee, I unintentionally touched the small cross around my neck. It was a habit that I followed without thinking. I had been wearing it for years, but I had never asked myself why. What did it actually mean? Why was I wearing it? What was I supposed to remember whenever I touched it? I didn't have those thoughts then. I was just trying to get through the day. I had no idea that in a matter of hours, my entire life would change forever. I showered, dressed, and prepared my bag for work. The day ahead felt like any other. Ordinary and predictable. Nothing about it felt unique or different. There was no warning, no sign from above. Nothing to alert me to the fact that I was about to enter something I could never have imagined. I left my house, locked the door, and walked to my car. The air was crisp, the sky was bright, and everything appeared to be perfectly normal. I had no idea that these moments would be the last time I saw my life as it was before. If someone had told me that morning that I was going to die that day, I would have laughed. However, death does not occur when we expect it. It does not wait for us to get ready. It comes unexpectedly, changing everything in an instant. And that is precisely what happened to me. The day progressed normally. I drove to work and listened to the same morning radio show I always did. The traffic was slow, but I wasn't in a hurry. I checked my phone at red lights, scrolling through emails and taking mental notes on what I needed to do. It was just another regular day. When I arrived at work, I followed my usual routine. Greeting coworkers, getting a second cup of coffee, and settling into my desk. The morning passed with little thought. I didn't feel anything strange until lunchtime. At first, I felt a small tightness in my chest, as if I had been holding my breath for too long. I shifted in my chair, stretched my arms, and attempted to shake it off. I told myself it was stress and possibly too much caffeine. I had intended to cut back, but I never did. I stood up and walked to the break room, hoping that fresh air would help. But the moment I took a step, a wave of dizziness struck me. The room seemed to tilt, and my vision became blurry. I gripped the edge of my desk, blinking quickly, attempting to clear my mind. My heart was pounding faster than I'd ever felt. Someone came by and asked if I was all right. I gave a forced smile and nodded. I said, "I'm fine," although I wasn't. I would rather not cause a scene. I took a deep breath and continued walking. But with each step, the tightness in my chest got worse. It was no longer just discomfort. It felt like something was pressing down on me, making it difficult to breathe. My arms felt heaviest. My legs are weak. I entered the break room, grabbed a glass of water, and attempted to steady myself. But then everything started to fade. The sounds around me grew distant, as if I were underwater. My vision tunneled into a small circle. The glass slipped from my grasp and shattered on the floor. And then I fell. I don't recall hitting the ground. I was standing 1 second and then floating, watching the next. I could see the room around me, but it didn't seem real. I noticed my coworkers rushing toward me, their faces filled with fear. Someone was yelling my name and shaking my shoulders, but I didn't feel anything. I saw someone pick up a phone and call for help. I saw my body lying there, motionless and lifeless. And then, for the first time, I experienced fear. Was that it? Was I going to die? I wanted to scream, to move. I wanted to let them know I was still here. But I could not. I felt torn between two worlds, unsure of where I belonged. Then everything became black. The last thing I remember hearing was the sound of sirens in the distance, which gradually faded until they vanished entirely. Before I knew it, I had disappeared. When I opened my eyes, something was different. The room looked the same, as did the break room and the spilled water on the floor. The crowd gathered around, but something felt off. Everything was too still and distant, as if I were viewing a scene from outside myself. Then I saw it. I lay motionless on the ground, my arms limp and my face pale. Someone was kneeling beside me, pressing their fingers on my neck to check for a pulse. Another person was speaking frantically on the phone, their voice urgent. I could hear everything, but it was muffled, as if I were listening through a wall. For a moment, my mind struggled to process what I was seeing. That was my body on the floor, but I was not inside. Panic overcame me. I tried to move and step forward, but I couldn't feel the ground beneath me. I reached out to touch the table, but my hand went straight through it. I attempted to speak, to call out to them, but nothing came out of my mouth. Nobody could see me. Nobody could hear me. I should have been afraid. I should have been terrified, but oddly I wasn't. Instead of panicking, I felt a strange sense of calm. It wasn't the calm that comes with being safe. It was the kind that occurs when you are aware that something is happening, but have no control over it. I looked around the room, noticing details I had never noticed before. The flickering light above the coffee machine, the tiny stain on the break room rug, and the way the clock on the wall appeared to slow down, as if time itself were stretching. I could see everything with clarity that I had never experienced before. I noticed details about people I worked with for years, such as lines on their faces and worry in their eyes. I noticed one of my coworkers clasping their hands together and whispering a prayer. Another person had tears in their eyes. I'd never thought much about death before. It had always seemed distant, something that happened to others. But now I was here, floating above my body, watching as my coworkers desperately tried to pull me back. I didn't know how long I stood there, watching. Time seemed to move differently than it did before. And then I felt it, a pull of force. Something was calling me, drawing me away from the room and the world I had always known. I took one final look at my body and the life I was leaving behind. And then I let go. At first, there was nothing but silence, a stillness I'd never experienced before. Then the light appeared. It began as a dim glow in the distance, barely visible. But as I focused on it, it brightened and expanded until it was all I could see. It wasn't just any light, it was alive. It pulsed, warm and inviting, as if it were calling out to me. I felt an invisible force pull me towards it. There was no fear or hesitation. It was as if this light had always been calling to me. As I got closer, I heard soft voices, gentle whispers. At first, I couldn't understand what they were saying. However, as I listened, I realized they were not just random sounds. They welcomed me. "You're safe. We've been waiting for you." The voices were neither harsh nor demanding. They were overflowing with love. A deep and pure love that made my heart ache. These weren't just words. I could feel them inside me, wrapping around me like a warm hug. Then something else occurred. Memories began to flash in front of me. Unlike a movie, the present is not in order. These are just some small, simple moments from my life. I pictured myself as a child, laughing as I ran barefoot through my backyard. My mother was brushing my hair gently and patiently. I saw my first heartbreak, and my tears soaked into my pillow. I saw moments I had forgotten, times I had been kind without realizing it, and times I had hurt others unintentionally. Each memory evoked a specific emotion, such as joy, sadness, regret, or love. But there was no judgment, only understanding. The tunnel of light was endless and eternal, and I knew I needed to keep going. As I went deeper, the warmth around me intensified. It was no longer just around me. It was inside me. It was filling and changing me. And then I saw him. A figure stood at the end of the tunnel, surrounded by light. A man. I didn't have to ask. I didn't have to ask. I knew who he was. Jesus. He stood there, waiting, his presence stronger than anything I'd ever experienced. His light was not limited to his surroundings. It came from him. That was him. His eyes met mine. And in that moment I felt everything. He recognized me. He had always known me. Every thought, every mistake, every fear. He had witnessed every single moment of love. My life, he had seen everything. Nonetheless, there was no anger, no disappointments, only love. Tears filled my eyes. I wished to speak. I wanted to collapse onto my knees. I tried to do something, but I couldn't. I could only stand there, overwhelmed by his presence. Then he finally spoke. "Come," he said. His voice was calm, steady. "We have a lot to talk about." Without hesitation, I followed him into the light. I stood before him. Cannot move. He was unable to speak. The light that surrounded Jesus was more than just visible. It was something that I could feel. It was not like the sun. It was neither harsh nor blinding. It was soft, warm, and alive. It wrapped around me like a presence I'd always sensed but never fully understood. He said nothing at first. He simply looked at me. And at that moment I knew he saw everything. I cherish every thought I've ever had. I had uttered every single word. Every secret I had was buried deep within myself. I assumed no one would ever know. He noticed the moments I was proud of. I had shown kindness on several occasions. I had given love to others. But he also saw when I had failed. Selfish choices. I regret the careless words I said. There were times when I ignored someone in need because it was inconvenient. I wanted to look away. I should have felt ashamed, but I did not. He had no judgment in his eyes. There is no anger, no disappointments, only love. Love is so deep, so vast. That was overwhelming. It was a love that embraced, rather than ignored, my failures. This was a lover who possessed complete knowledge about me, yet still yearned for me. Tears filled my eyes. I'd never felt anything like it before. I'd spent so much of my life worrying about being good enough. I was constantly striving to demonstrate my worth. I was trying to hide my mistakes. But standing in front of Jesus, I realized something I'd never understood before. He had never expected perfection from me. He had only wanted my heart. I attempted to speak, but my voice would not come. My mind raced with questions. Why am I here? What will happen now? Do I deserve to be in your presence? But Jesus did not need my words. He already knew what was in my heart. Eventually he spoke. "You're loved." Only 3 words. But they shook me to the core. I'd heard those words before in my life. From family. From friends. But not like this. Never has it felt so absolute. So unchanging. It did not matter what I had done. It did not matter where I had failed. He loved me. Completely. Unconditionally. I felt my knees weaken. I fell to the ground. Overwhelmed. I'd spent my entire life believing in Jesus. I'd prayed to him. I wore a cross around my neck. Went to church. But this was different. This was real in ways I never imagined. This wasn't simply believing in Jesus. This was knowing him. His presence filled every empty space within me. Every fear. Every doubt. Every insecurity. I felt them melt away as if they had never existed. He extended his hand and gently lifted me back to my feet. "There is something you need to understand," he said. I swallowed hard, nodding, because I knew what he was going to tell me would change everything. Jesus looked at me. His eyes were full of love and urgency. Before he said anything, I could feel the weight of his words. "The cross," he said. His voice was steady. "Is more than just a symbol." I felt a shiver run through my body. I'd worn a cross necklace for years. I barely think about it. It was simply part of me. A habit. Something that made me feel safer. I'd seen crosses everywhere. About churches. On car bumpers. On t-shirts. It was familiar. Something I believed I understood. But as Jesus spoke, I realized I had never truly understood its significance. He raised his hand. All of a sudden, a vision appeared before me. I noticed millions of people wearing crosses. Others hung them around their necks. Some have tattooed them on their skin. Some people used them as decorations in their homes. The cross was everywhere. But something wasn't right. I saw people wearing crosses, but living as if nothing mattered. A man sits in church. I nodded through the sermon, but when he stepped outside, he was unkind to his family. A woman wears a cross necklace, gossiping and spreading lies. A politician uses the cross to get votes. But he ignored the people he was supposed to help. A teenager is treating it as a fashion accessory, not understanding the sacrifice involved. And then, even worse, people use the cross to justify their selfishness. Some people used it as a weapon, judging others rather than showing love. Some kept it as a good luck charm. They believed it would protect them even as they committed sin. Some people hid behind it. They pretended to be righteous while their hearts were filled with darkness. Tears burned my eyes. Had I done it too? Had I worn my cross without knowing its weight? Had I viewed it as a decoration rather than a reminder of what Jesus had done for me? Jesus turned towards me. His voice is firm but gentle. The cross is not intended to be a barrier to empty faith. He said, it's a call to live differently. Then, the vision changed. I noticed a different group of people. Those who really understood the cross. A woman holds a small wooden cross in her hands. She is praying in the quiet of her home. Her heart is full of love. A man who had wrestled with sin. Now he carries his cross with humility, knowing it symbolized his redemption. A young boy helps a stranger, not because he desired praise, but he realized what Jesus had done for him. The cross, in its true meaning, was not simply an object. It was a way of living. I turned back to Jesus. My heart is pounding. I never knew. I whispered. He looked at me with kindness. Now you do. His words struck me like a wave. The cross was more than just something you wore. It was a symbol of sacrifice. A reminder of love. A reminder that faith is more than simply saying the right words or wearing the appropriate symbols. It's about living in a way that is true to me. I reflected on all the times I had touched my necklace without thinking. Previously, I had treated my faith as something passive, something convenient. No more. Jesus moved closer. His presence filled me with peace and conviction. The cross is light when carried with love, he said. However, it is heavy when worn without understanding. I swallowed hard. I'd worn the cross for so long. But now, for the first time, I really felt it. It was not merely a symbol. It was a responsibility. Jesus put his hand on my shoulder. Now he must reveal the truth. I nodded. The weight of his words made my heart burn. Because I knew things would never be the same again. Jesus stretched out his hand. And without a word, I knew he was going to show me something else. The light around us started to shift. The warmth remained. But something new crept in, heaviness. I turned my head and noticed something beyond the glowing radiance. Shadows. They moved like smoke. Shift and curl. Never fully formed but consistently present. They were not solid. Nonetheless, they felt real. I moved closer. And I did. I saw images in the shadows. Doubts. Regrets. Fears. I saw people walking in the dark. Some people are reaching for the light but are afraid to take a step forward. Others stood still. Trapped, weighed down by their past mistakes. Some carried crosses in their hands. However, he appeared lost. Their faces were filled with confusion. I could feel their struggles. Questions they had never dared to ask aloud. Does God truly love me? Am I good enough? What happens if I fail? What if I do not belong? I turned toward Jesus. My heart aches. Why are they stuck? Because they believe faith entails avoiding the dark. He said. True faith, however, involves walking through it. Knowing the light will always be present. His words cut deep. I had always thought that faith meant having no doubts. That meant being strong. Never struggled. Always knowing the correct answer. But now, I understood. Faith was not the absence of darkness. It was a decision to believe in the light even when you couldn't see it. Jesus stepped forward. The light around him extended into the shadows. As it did, the darkness shifted. It did not vanish completely. However, it no longer felt suffocating. Some of the people trapped in the shadows started moving. They took slow, hesitant steps towards the light. And they did. The weight on them was lifted. They were not suddenly perfect. They weren't without struggle. But they chose to proceed, despite their fears. And that was the true meaning of faith. I looked down at my hands. How often had I let fear hold me back? How often had I hesitated? I believed I needed to be good enough before I could fully embrace faith. I remembered the cross I had worn all my life. It was never intended to be simply a symbol of faith. It was a reminder that faith must be lived. I turned back to Jesus, and for the first time since coming here, I felt lighter. Faith is more than just something you wear, he said. Something you walk into. Tears filled my eyes. I finally understand. And now, I knew I needed to take this truth back with me. Jesus raised his hand. All of a sudden, the scenery around me changed. The warmth of the light had faded, and I found myself gazing down at the world below. It was Earth, but not like I'd ever seen it before. Cities reached as far as the eye could see, full of people moving in all directions. They walked with purpose, busy, distracted. But as I looked closer, I realized something. Their eyes were empty. They were alive, but they weren't alive. They scrolled through their phones. I chased money, obsessed with their appearance, their status. They achieved success. They filled their lives with possessions. But I could see the truth below the surface. They were lost. I turned toward Jesus. My chest tightened. Why do they look this way? They have forgotten me, he said. His voice was heavy with sorrow. They replace faith with distractions. They seek happiness in something that will never last. The vision shifted. I saw churches, grand and full. People sat on the pews. They wore their best clothes. They sang. They prayed. They bowed their heads. But I looked into their hearts. I realized that many of them were not really present. Some people were thinking about their schedules, their grocery list, their upcoming business meeting. Some were present out of obligation. Words are repeated without meaning. Some were there simply to be seen, to show others that they were good people. They said the prayers. However, they did not feel them. They honor me with their lips, Jesus said. His voice was filled with sadness. But their hearts are far from mine. Tears burned my eyes. The vision shifted again. And I witnessed something even worse. People use his name to gain power. Preachers are twisting his words to gain wealth. Leaders use the cross to control others. Instead, bring them to the truth. Businesses are selling faith as a product, something to be purchased and displayed, instead of something to be experienced. I shake my head. Why is this happening? Because they don't know me, Jesus said. They know about me. They use my name. However, they do not seek my heart. His words crushed me. He then turned to me, and I noticed something new in his eyes. Urgency. It's time to wake up, he said. Tell them before it's too late. A strong sense of responsibility overcame me. The entire world was asleep. I'm drowning in distractions, using faith for decoration rather than transformation. People had to wake up. Jesus put his hand on my shoulder. They should remember why they were created. They must seek me with all their hearts. I nodded. My breath was unsteady, because I knew the message wasn't just for them. It was for me too. I stood there. My heart was heavy from everything Jesus had shown me. The world was lost. I'm drowning in distractions, empty rituals, and misplaced priorities. But I turned back to face him. I didn't see any anger in his eyes, only love. A love so deep, so unshaken, that made my chest ache. What must change? I asked. My voice barely rose above a whisper. Jesus looked at me with quiet intensity. Faith must be personal. It must be alive. Can't be just words. It's just routines. It's just a habit passed down. It must be real. I felt those words sink into me. So many people, including myself, had viewed faith as a checklist. Go to church. Say a prayer. Wear a crucifix. Strive to be a good person. However, we had missed the main point. Many people believed they had to earn my love. Jesus continued. They carry guilt, fear, and shame, believing that they are never enough. I considered how many times I'd felt like that. How many times had I whispered prayers? I hoped they were enough. I wondered if I had done too much wrong. If I had strayed too far for God to still want me. Jesus moved closer. His presence is overwhelming. My love cannot be earned. It's always been there. Tears filled my eyes. How many people have spent their entire lives proving themselves worthy of God's love, when the truth was they already possessed it? I recalled the cross I had worn all these years. I had considered it a symbol of my faith, a way to demonstrate that I believed. but I'd never really considered what it asked of me. Jesus raised his hand, and then I saw a vision of myself through the years, putting on my cross necklace every morning. I kept touching it unintentionally all day. I tucked it beneath my shirt when I didn't want to draw attention to it. I'd worn it, but had I lived it? Jesus' voice remained steady. The cross is more than just something you wear. It's a commitment to love even when things are difficult, to forgive even when it hurts, to relinquish control rather than attempting to force my own way, to trust even when I do not understand. True faith was not based on rules or appearances. It was not about appearing holy. It was about going for a walk with him each day, in every moment. And that kind of faith did not instill fear. It did not weigh people down. It set them free. Jesus took my hand and put it over my heart. "Live it," he said. I closed my eyes. I felt the truth of his words sink deeply into my soul. And I knew when I would return, I'd never be the same. I stood in the overwhelming presence of Jesus. My heart was torn in two. Every part of me wanted to stay. Here, in this place of light. There was no pain. Have no fear. No doubt. Just peace. Just love. It was unlike anything I had ever known. And part of me didn't want to leave. But then, I thought about my family. I noticed their faces flash before me. My mother. My father. My friends. The people I cherished. The ones I'd left behind. I recalled the conversations I had never had. I had taken these things for granted. I thought of all the people who were similar to me, wearing crosses, saying prayers. However, I never truly understood. I looked at Jesus. My chest tightened. Do I need to go back? His eyes were filled with compassion. You've seen the truth, he said. But your journey isn't over. I swallowed hard. I knew what he meant. I'd been given something priceless, something most people never see. And now, I had to share it. I lower my head, struggling under the weight of it all. Could I really? Will you return? Can I return to the world? Knowing what I know now, Jesus put his hand on my shoulder. And in that moment, I felt something strong. Strength. Purpose. A call. You're supposed to tell them, he said. And then, before I could add another word, I felt a force pull me away. The light around me started to fade. The warmth of his presence began to fade from my grasp. I gave a gasp. We're reaching out. Unfortunately, it was too late. The world around me blurred, spinning faster and faster. Then, everything went dark. And with that I was gone. I gasped for breath. My chest rose sharply as if I had drowned, and had recently broken through the surface. The world around me was a blur of sound and motion. My body felt heaviest. My limbs are stiff. My heart pounded against my rib cage, and my lungs burned as I drew in each breath. I was alive. The realization struck me all at once. I was back. The fluorescent lights above me flickered. Their brightness was sharp against my eyes. Voices filled the air with urgency. Panicked. However, it is distant. I felt hands pressing against me. Someone called my name. I blinked, attempting to focus, trying to make sense of things. But all I could feel was the enormity of what had just occurred. I'd been there. With Jesus. I had witnessed the truth. And now, I was here again. I felt a deep shudder as I slowly turned my head. Everything appeared the same. The same room. The same people. The same world I'd left. But things weren't the same. I was not the same. Each breath I took felt different. Sacred. It was like a gift that I had never fully appreciated before. Every sound. Every move. Every little detail in the world around me felt sharper. Made it clearer. I moved my hand weakly and felt something cool on my skin. My fingers closed around the small cross that rested on my chest. Something felt different now. Heavier. Not in weight. However, there is meaning. Before, it had only been a piece of jewelry. I wore something without thinking. But now, it felt alive. Filled with purpose. A reminder of everything I'd seen. Everything I'd learned. A sob rose up in my throat. My eyes are filling with tears. I did not deserve what I had received. I did not deserve to see the truth. To have stood in Jesus' presence. To have been returned with this message. But he'd given it to me anyway. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I clutched the cross in my shaking hand. Thank you, Jesus. The words came out in a whisper, but they carried the entire weight of my heart, because I knew I was given a second chance, and I wouldn't waste it. That day changed the course of my life forever. I awoke to the same world, but I was not the same person. The air felt different. The colors appeared richer. The smallest details, things I previously ignored, I felt full of meaning. I used to live my life without thinking. I prayed whenever I needed something. I went to church when it was expected, and wore a cross without considering its weight. But now, I understood. Faith was not about routine. It was not about appearing religious, or saying the correct words. It was about getting to know Him. It was about waking up each day with the realization that my life was not my own. That's every breath, every moment, was a gift. I'd spent so much of my life displaying my faith. Instead, live it. But now, I couldn't do it anymore. Because I'd seen Jesus. I'd stood before Him, completely known, fully visible. I felt the love that had always been present, waiting for me to stop looking in the wrong places. And now, I had a responsibility to share this information. If you're reading this, I need you to pause and consider yourself. Do you actually know Him? Not just know about Him. Don't just repeat the prayers you've always been taught. Do not simply wear religious symbols without considering their significance. Do you really seek Him? Would you like to know His heart? Because I witness what happens when faith is merely an appearance. When individuals go through the motions, I think it's enough. I saw churches packed with people who spoke His name. They never invited Him into their hearts. I saw people wearing crosses without realizing what sacrifice they represented. I noticed believers sleeping. They believed they were alive in faith, but they had never truly awakened. And I noticed Jesus watching it all, waiting for them to turn back to Him. The truth is, He does not want perfect words, or perfect individuals. He just wants you, right now, as you are. But you must make a choice. You must decide whether your faith will be real, or simply something that appears real. You have to decide whether you will walk in it, not just talking about it. I was given a second opportunity. However, none of us knows how much time we have left. So, I'm asking you now, will you live with true intention? Will you embrace faithfully? Will you seek Him? Not only in symbols, but in the depths of your heart? As I promise you, He is waiting. He always was. And when you finally open up to Him, you'll understand. You were never alone.